Good evening, everybody, on this cold night. Okay, right, let's crack on because we have a very packed agenda. Item 1, filming at meetings. I welcome you all to the November meeting of Full Council here at Tottenham Green Leisure Centre. Please note that this meeting is being streamed live to the public and available on the Council website. This meeting is also recorded by the Council for subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site. Please note that this meeting may be filmed by anybody attending the meeting using any communication method. Although we ask members of the public recording, filming or reporting on the meeting not to include the public seating areas, members of the public attending the meeting should be aware that we cannot guarantee that you will not be filmed or recorded by others attending the meeting. By entering the meeting room tonight and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. As chair of this meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming or recording if, in my opinion, continuation of the filming, recording or reporting would disrupt or prejudice the proceedings, infringe the rights of any individual, or may lead to the breach of a legal obligation by the Council. Members and attendees would have been provided with the COVID safety guidance of this meeting, and I ask that members are particularly careful to ensure that they keep a safe distance. And we've also factored in the age-old social distancing rules, which, although not enforced, we think where possible should be maintained. Before starting the items, please can the Democratic Services Officer confirm with our sound and audio engineer that there are no issues with the streaming of this meeting, unless it is indeed available to the public.
Mr. Mayor, just to confirm we are live.
Thank you. Attendees in the meeting can view the papers on modern.gov on the modern.gov app or open the PDF sent by the Democratic Services Manager, or there are indeed hard copies available, as Councillor Sennett's just got one, at the desk at the back of the hall. To support the stream and deter issues with the stream, please can attendees in the room not use the Teams invite. Members and external speakers joining online, please can you keep your microphones and cameras off to ensure bandwidth for the stream. I will ask speakers to turn on their cameras on at the appropriate times in the meeting. Right, item 2, apologies of absence. Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, the following councillors have provided apologies. Councillors Adamu, Amin, Chirian Kandath, Demir, Barnes, Mark Blake, Stone, James, Ejiofor and Carroll.
Thank you very much. Item 3, admission of late business.
Mr. Mayor, I'm asking you to agree the admission of the following late items of business that could not be available earlier and need to be dealt with at this meeting. Item 7, change in committee membership. The reason for lateness was to allow finalisation of the report and consultation. Item 11, the report from Corporate Committee on Treasury Management mid-year update. The reason for lateness was due to Corporate Committee meeting after publication of the Council papers. Item 14, questions and written answers. The reason for lateness is that notice of questions is not requested until 8 clear days before the meeting, following which the matters raised have to be researched and replies prepared to be given at the meeting. Item 15, motions. The amendments to motions are not requested until 10 a.m. on the day of the council meeting, and we have received amendments to motion C and motion D, which have been published and distributed today as a supplementary pack.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Item 4, declarations of interest. Under the Council's agreed code of conduct, members are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or prejudicial interest as defined by the code at any meeting, and may not participate in any discussion or vote on the matter and must withdraw from the meeting room. Details of the requirement to make a declaration of interest are shown on the printed summons at item 5. Should you need to make, or should any member need to make any such declaration, you should do it by clearly stating the reasons and the nature of the interest. Members with a sensitive interest as defined in the code must declare that they have a disclosable interest, but that the details of that interest need not be disclosed. Would any member like to make a declaration of interest? Councillor Hakata.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to declare a personal and prejudicial interest in the deputation item in relation to Deputation 4 and Motion D.
Thank you. Councillor Bevan. Thank you. Councillor Diakides.
A personal and prejudicial interest in respect of items 13.
Sorry, just stand up, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In respect of items 13 and 15 relating to North London West Authority business, and I am a voting member of the North London West Authority, and therefore I will not be participating in the discussion in respect of these items.
Thank you. Councillor Snedds.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a non-prejudicial interest in that I live in one of the low-traffic neighbourhoods proposed in Haringey.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, that's noted, presumably, folks. Yeah. Item 5, to approve the minutes of the meeting on July the 19th, 2021 as a correct record. Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask the Council to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July 2021.
Thank you. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Good, thank you. I was worried I'd have to encourage you to be louder like last time. Good. Item 6, Mayor's Communications. Now, you'll all have received, I hope, the written update I provided earlier, but there was a couple of things I just want to point out. I was saddened to receive the news of the passing in April 2020 of one of my predecessors, former Mayor Sheikh Thompson. Like colleagues across the council, I remember Sheikh well. He was larger than life and I know will be missed by his family and friends. On behalf of the London Borough of Haringey, I extended condolences to his wife, Kyoko, and his son, who I met quite recently. Like many in our community, I was horrified by the senseless murder of the late David Amos MP. His killing whilst doing his job shocked us all, and I'll be asking all colleagues to join me in a minute's silence to mark his murder and indeed the passing of former Mayor Sheikh Thompson shortly. I have just launched the 30 at 30 challenge. I'll be turning 30 on Wednesday, the 15th of December. And so over the next 30 days, I'll be visiting 30 different businesses across the borough. This is a chance to raise money for my 3 charities and importantly to meet and support many of the wonderful businesses that fuel Haringey's local economy. I have spent the last few weeks, thanks to Councillor Babazon's help, visiting a number of schools and celebrating Black History Month across the borough. It's been such a joy to see the future of our community in these amazingly bright young people at schools across the patch, and it has generally been a delight to see them. I've also been delighted to attend a number of events at our local libraries as we mark the programme of refurbishment that many of them have gone through. Tomorrow is Hornsey, and I believe Councillor Palmer will be there speaking too, as Councillor Connor was when we were in Muswell Hill. I would like to encourage all colleagues, if they haven't had their boosters, to get their boosters. If they haven't had their second vaccines, to make sure they get their second vaccines. It's a call that we all have to make sure is heard loud and clear by our constituents. Haringey's vaccination rate remains stubborn, so all efforts we can take as elected representatives to encourage our constituents should be taken. I would also like to just thank all of the officers who work to support me and Eldridge as deputy. They work very hard to make sure we can do what we do and help to make sure we got through 236 engagements in the last several months. A shout out happy birthday to Councillor Gordon, who celebrated hers last week, Councillor Davis, who's not here but hers was yesterday, and to Councillor Peter Mitchell, whose was on Friday. And if there are any others I've missed, that's because you haven't told me, but they did. So happy birthday to those colleagues. And lastly, tonight we are joined, I mentioned earlier about some of the young people I met when I was at our schools, visiting our schools. Tonight we are joined by Mr. Giovanni Rose, a 17-year-old student at one of our schools in Tottenham. He wrote a poem, Welcome to Tottenham, that saw him beat over 6,000 other young people to win one of the biggest poetry competitions in the world. I'm hugely proud of you, Giovanni. I know many of my colleagues will be, across both parties and none. and I'm delighted you're here tonight to read your poem to us and for all of us as Haringey representatives to acknowledge your efforts. The floor's yours.
Welcome to Tottenham, where we wake up to the smell of Chick King mixed with the odour of the corpse from the night before. We cover our blood-stained streets with dried up gum. The kids have holes in the last pair of shoes, where daddy left mummy and mummy's left poor. Welcome to Tottenham, where if you look like me, then it's harder for you. Where everybody's equal unless they're darker than you. Where the police see colour before they see the crime. Where kids of such and such aren't allowed to ask why. Welcome to Tottenham, where the drug addicts sit at the back of the 149. Where education and sports are the only ways to shine. Where we ride around on stolen scooters. Where we can't afford tuition, so the streets are our tutors. Welcome to Tottenham. I love, but I hate my home. I still listen to the voicemails of my dead peers in my phone. I live in a nightmare. I had to learn how to dream. I'm afraid to open up because you don't survive if you're weak. Welcome to Tottenham, the devil's playground. We fight over streets we don't own. Knife crimes on the rise because the beef can't be left alone. Why does no one understand that we just want our youth clubs back? Why do they claim they're not racist but label the violence they're black? Welcome to Tottenham. Thank you. You guys are too nice.
You've done better than most of us, Giovanni, who don't get that reaction. Many congratulations. Thank you for coming. I know you've got somewhere cool to hang out with tonight, so I'll let you get to that. But we look forward to seeing your successes in the months and years ahead. Thank you. There isn't really provision for members to ask questions in Mayor's communications, Councillor Akides, but how can I help? Please rise. You've been here long enough. You should know.
If it is all right, Mayor, I would like to say just 2 words about our comrade Sheikh Thompson.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Is that
Thank
okay?
you. Yes, yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we've got a long meeting, but I just want to register my sadness for the loss of my friend Sheikh Thompson. I think I won't say very much. He certainly would qualify as one of the most colourful characters in our community and in our council, and he was a mayor, quite a distinguished one. He left his mark. I think he was a tenant activist. First I knew him because he was a council tenant as well in Tottenham, but the main thing I found afterwards was he was a distinguished musician, a jazz musician, and he used his mayoral term to promote young musicians throughout. And I think still years later, a lot of musicians in the edge, especially jazz musicians, are talking about the help that they received from a sheikh. I remember just one incident when he first became a mayor, and he brought his saxophone with him in one of the things that he had to visit in order to play, and he was told that that was inappropriate. I remember his disappointment very much on that one. I won't say anything more, Mr. Mayor, but just simply to register again my sadness for the loss of my friend. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Akides. And as I indicated, I'd like all colleagues to join me in a minute's silence, both for David Amos MP and Sheikh Thompson. Okay, thank you very much. Item 7. To receive the report of the Chief Executive on the appointment to committees.
The report sets out an appointment to the Pensions Committee and Board in accordance with the Labour Group wishes.
Chief Whip. Sorry, Reg, just start again. We can't hear you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the recommendations be made.
Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 8, to receive the report of the monitoring officer.
Mr. Mayor, I have no matters to report on.
Thank you. Item 9, to make appointments to outside bodies. Chief Whip.
Mr. Mayor, I move the report and the amendments be made and the recommendations.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Item 10, adoption of the revised statement of gambling policy under the Gambling Act. I call on Councillor Bevan to move this report together with any recommendations it contains. Councillor Bevan.
I move the report and the recommendations.
Sorry, John. Reg, just turn your mic off for me, please. Can someone just... Thank you. John? Press it once.
Yeah, it hasn't come on.
It's on.
The light's not on. Well, I move the report and the recommendations included.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Nope. Okay. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you. Item 11, Treasury Management Update Mid-Year Report 2021-22. I call on Councillor Mitchell to remove his report together with any recommendations it contains. Councillor Mitchell. Sorry, hold on, not working. Speak, Pete. No.
Mr. Mayor, I
welcome Councillor Mitchell.
thank you very much. I ask members to note the half-year report on the Treasury management activities and to note that those were conducted in line with the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are the recommendations, are there any questions on Councillor Mitchell's report? No, it means everyone read it intently, Peter, very clear. And are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Noted. You're slipping back to being quiet. Right, item 12, the importance of our high streets supporting small businesses and the local economy. This is the Haringey debate. To remind members of the process, this debate will be introduced by a member of the opposition. Their guest speakers will have up to 10 minutes in total to introduce the topic and provide information to members of this council. We will then start the debate. I would like to ask Councillor Dennison to introduce the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to be opening this debate tonight. It highlights a topic which is very personal to me and close to my heart. I started my first business in 2012 after leaving as an officer at this very council. I know firsthand how hard it can be to take that first step on your own into the world of business. How tough it can be to survive and hopefully thrive on a local high street, and how important micro businesses are to all economies and how crucial they are here in Haringey. Haringey's economy is dominated by micro businesses. According to the latest Office for National Statistics data, 94% of all businesses in Haringey have less than 10 employees. These are our family-run shops, the small office-based firms often run from home, and exciting, innovative manufacturing, digital and creative businesses popping up in our industrial estates around the borough, all of which contribute 80 £8.5 million of business rate funding, which is retained by the council and is therefore pumped back into our communities. Now, I hope that we can all agree that the regressive business rate scheme needs fundamental reform. It does little to incentivise landlords to improve their properties, hits businesses before they take £1 in revenue, let alone profit, and the way in which it's set up weakens the relationship between economic success and the retained revenues from the council's finances. And of course, the primary reason businesses are so important is not just so that we can tax them. The real reason is our businesses and high streets are so important is jobs. Despite the faults of the business rate scheme, our businesses create a huge amount of employment and an economy that attracts people to live and travel into our borough. Now, all businesses have been affected by the biggest shock to our economy in 400 years. The pandemic accelerated the opening of fissures that have threatened our local high streets for a decade. The pandemic also laid bare the huge chasm between this Labour Council, who is all too happy to use local businesses as a cash cow, but has little meaningful engagement with them to help them in their hour of need. Despite the best efforts of our council officers to distribute grants to keep many businesses alive, it was hampered by years of neglect from Labour politicians in charge to give any priority to business in Haringey. We didn't even have an up-to-date list of what businesses were trading and where. At best, this shows Labour do not have the knowledge, experience, or the ability to know how to help business, and at worst, they just don't care. To expand on this, let's look how Labour politicians have treated businesses in Haringey. They've presided over a decade of efforts to eradicate the livelihoods of traders of Ord's Corner, kowtowed to big developers to sell off swathes of Tottenham to the highest bidder. And time and again, they failed to hand over cash to local businesses to provide apprenticeships, cash that ultimately gets sent back to the government. Now, that was £1.6 million over the last 3 years. And it doesn't stop there. I recently visited businesses and residents in Seven Sisters who were deeply concerned about the future of their way of life in the warehouse district. Again, developers are eyeing up opportunities which could obliterate these creative businesses, yet the council is absent. We should have a council that wants to grow our unique businesses in Haringey, help them thrive and enable them to grow. This needs a vision for every unique business area in the borough, not a blanket action plan that fails to understand that every area is distinctive and needs a different approach. The failure by this Labour administration is no better shown in the way in which they're committed to spend millions of pounds creating a new council-centred building in the centre of the borough, exactly at the time when residents are spending more time in their local town centre. That is 20, 30, 40, 50 million pounds, I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment, of council's money that should be used to invest in our high streets, help create new jobs, enable businesses to grow, move services locally so they can adapt to local areas better, and make our many town centres better places to visit. I have no doubt that our business community will evolve and thrive in these uncertain times. However, this is unfortunately despite the council rather than a result of a true partnership between business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennison. Now, I would like to welcome the two guest speakers invited to speak in this debate. Mark Afford, the chair of the Crouch End Neighbourhood Forum, and my old friend from school, Lewis Freeman, who's chair of the Crouch End Trades Association, who will be speaking jointly tonight and are joining us online. And I know Lewis is watching because you sent me a WhatsApp message. So, Mark, Lewis, over to you.
Okay, can you hear me?
We did for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. I think I'm going first. My name is Mark Afford from the Crouch End Neighbourhood Forum. What I wanted to do is I haven't got long, so I'll just raise a few points. The first one is on the significance of high streets, and I think they play a huge role, but not only for jobs in the economy, but also in terms of identity, well-being, local pride, and that's not just for long-standing communities, but also for new communities who are often dependent on high streets for building and bonding their own recent communities. They're also obviously important for Haringey in terms of resources, and there's a real imperative, I think, for Haringey to support all 10 town centres across the borough to optimise the potential of all of them, simply in terms of the rates, the business rates that could be accrued. Secondly, then, I think it's important to appraise the high streets, which are often closer in profile and performance than is sometimes perceived. I mean, so I was on Tottenham High Road last week, actually. My view is that it looks, probably better than its image, I can put it that way, whereas Crouch End sometimes isn't. Topsfield Parade, you're often surrounded by fast food takeaways, charity shops, street clutter, that kind of thing. We also at the forum maintain a survey of Crouch End, and I would like to say that Crouch End much has changed in the last decade. The comparison shopping has gone, chains have moved, the banks are now closing, and in their stead it's more leisure, nail bars and pizzerias. There are now 10 pizzerias in Crouch End, amazingly. I know because I counted them. And in the last 3 years, Crouch End has seen 58 businesses close and 40 businesses open just in 3 years, which is a huge turnover. Though I think I should resist the usual narrative of decline, because it shows that the entrepreneurial spirit is still there and people are still willing to take a chance on opening up in our town centres. So lastly, in terms of Haringey, I suppose, what I would like to do is suggest that it's the local economy that should take centre stage with high streets, and it placing the visitor very much at the centre of thinking and asking what interventions would increase footfall and dwell time. And in that, I think we could make things look more pleasant and address the often, shabby urban realm that can sometimes be a problem. We can expand the pavements, create new public spaces, provide more crossings, make environmental improvements. There's nowhere to sit at the moment, for instance, in Crouch End, if people wanted to spend more time here. We could calm through traffic, and we could address the character and protect the character of local high streets, many of which are in conservation areas, for instance. We could apply Article 4 protection against unwarranted residential conversions, which might cause problems. And in terms of the economy, I think Haringey could support vitality and support and encourage flexible use, leverage entrepreneurship, provide new forms of tenure, pop-ups, things like that, and also identify space for pavement cafes, which is something that came out of the COVID situation, where they were often waiting whether or not it was for licensing or support. And lastly, obviously, Haringey could be ambitious for all town centres, hopefully. And I know Lewis is going to talk about this, but engagement is obviously key as well. Thanks. Over to you, Lewis.
Thank you very much, Matt. Very well said. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Lewis.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. I just following up on what Mark said. Crouch End is a beautiful yet delicate social and economic ecosphere, packed with residents passionate about their area, such as the Crouch End Festival team. That put on
sorry, Lewis. Sorry to interrupt. A number of my colleagues are indicating they can't see you.
My camera doesn't work on this computer.
There's some clarity for you, colleagues. Thanks, Lewis. Over to you.
Sorry about that. Such as the Crouch End Festival team, who put on amazing events throughout the year, and individuals such as Mark that put a lot of time into maintaining and upholding Crouch End as a whole. And then we have a wonderful subsection of shopkeepers and restaurateurs with a real wealth and passion and experience of their trade, employing no doubt hundreds of local people and really making the area what it is today, one of the jewels in the Haringey crown. Now, we must trust the judgment and experience of these individuals. They all want what is best for the local area, and in so many aspects have so much knowledge about the local area and often live inside it as well as trade inside it. It's absolutely paramount that engagement and consultation is placed at the forefront of any decision of policy making that is made by the council, so that Haringey can make the right decision for Crouch End as a whole, and the area can continue to prosper. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. Right. Thank you both for your contributions. You can, Mark, turn your camera off if it is. I can't quite see it. Is it off? Yeah, okay, good. Members will now have up to 3 minutes to make their contributions, and a couple have indicated they want to speak, so we'll see how time goes if I'm able to, I'm chair of the meeting, if I'm able to squeeze you in. But I'll go to the Cabinet Member, Councillor Gordon first, please.
Problems with, oh, I'm on.
We can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me. I'd absolutely welcome this debate and thank the contributors so far for what they've said. Absolutely right that small and medium-sized enterprises are at the heart of Haringey's economy, and we've got a hugely diverse range of businesses in the borough. If we take the sort of finest strip of Turkish and Kurdish restaurants in the capital, that's in Green Lanes. We've got Beavertown Brewery. We've got metal workers who work in Seven Sisters. I've been down to visit the factory there, and they make gates for royal palaces and gardens and so on. Who would know that was made in Tottenham? We've got fashion designers in Tottenham. We've got studios in Tottenham who are getting big recording contracts, and that is part of the new industries that are coming forward that are based in Tottenham. So we've got a very varied and burgeoning economy on the one hand, but we've recognised that during the pandemic that a lot of businesses have suffered, and we have come up with a strategy which I think is a very clear strategy for a good economy recovery plan, and that has 4 strands to it. And it is important to have a strategy, because out of that strategy then you can develop the policy documents, and then from those you can develop the actions that you will take on the ground. So there's 4 strands to that strategy. 1 strand for working and training residents that may be needing to move and transfer their skills. For social and economic regeneration. So, for example, out of that emerges projects such as the Roge Cafe in Duckett's Common, the parklets in Maze Road, for example, the artwork that will appear, hopefully it's soon, on the mall in Wood Green, Noel Park parklets and so on. Another part of that strategy is for economic recovery and renewal of all of our businesses. And a 4th strand is with a particular focus on the High Streets Recovery Action Plan. And that is bringing together all of our high streets, rejuvenating, first of all, helping those shops and businesses on our high streets and in our town centres to reopen after COVID, but supporting them as well. So in the summer we run treasure trove finds, and we had all sorts of initiatives. Thank you. All sorts of initiatives that took place there, with supporting by councillors and by officers. Over the winter, we've got lots of different activities in all of the town centres: Crouch End, Tottenham, Turnpike Lane, Middleton Road, and so on. We are working together with a strategic working group that is bringing together the trading organisations in Wood Green, in Turnpike Lane, and in in Green Lanes, and working in a strategic way, bringing all of those different trading organisations together, and with the community, and working with the police to help reduce antisocial behaviour. And there's a myriad of other initiatives that are being taken by our economic development team. And I don't know if I've got time to go into all of them, but I can just rattle off a few. Our participation in Global Enterprise Week. our business crime reduction partnership, working with the BID, as I said before, the Evolve Haringey West, where we're organising one-to-one support for entrepreneurs and bespoke tailored support and so on. So all of these initiatives we've been taking as a council, supported by officers. I would encourage any businesses or people who want to get information for businesses to visit the website that the council has got, where you can either look at all sorts of issues, support for COVID-19 related issues, on Brexit, on the services that the council provide, on business rates, on licensing or standard or and licensing standards and environmental issues. And so all of that information is supplied, but we have a massive amount of work that goes on all the time with our businesses, with our high street centres. And I think that we have got a sort of treasure trove in Haringey of the sorts of businesses that we have. One sort of small business that I found out about recently was a theatre production company, really, that it was, and they were sort of involved in making costumes. And one of the staff told me that she works as a beard maker, which quite surprised me, but sort of only in Tottenham could you have a beard maker. But that company supplied Dumbledore's beard for the Harry Potter films. So I think there's lots of things to be proud about our businesses in Tottenham. It is thriving. There has been huge difficulties for business over the pandemic, but we have been as supportive as we can. We have put money, we have made investments into our businesses, and we will continue to do that as hard as we can.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Colley-Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have to say that the initiatives Councillor Gordon has just referred to are far from the experience I've had in respect to business support. Since I've been a councillor, trying to get Haringey Council to engage productively with businesses and support high street innovation has been challenging, to say the least. Even as COVID hit, trying to get the council to proactively support our small businesses, which, as speakers have already said, are the lifeblood of the borough's economy, has been all but impossible. All too often we are presented with reasons why we can't do something rather than reasons why we can. And that's why Haringey is so routinely left behind by other boroughs. So with this poor record in mind, I thought I'd take a look over Labour's 2018 manifesto and see if they had perhaps broken any manifesto commitments. But I was unable to find any broken promises in the area, because throughout the document, high streets were mentioned 0 times. And beyond the ex-leader's introduction quoting support for businesses, business got 1 mention as part of business rates. Still, Councillor Armett, when she took over, was able to trump that manifesto for a lack of caring towards businesses, as her first action of leader of the council was to abolish the cabinet member for local investment and economic growth, and responsibility for that area is now bizarrely in the house building portfolio. But Liberal Democrats have continued to champion the cause of businesses and high streets, both at council-wide level and in our wards. And last year we proposed that the council should cancel the Civic Centre vanity project and invest that money in our town and district centres. It would have helped to ensure that they are sustainable in a post-pandemic world and introduce a more vibrant mix of uses to our high streets, as Mark Afford mentioned before, and not only our shops, but places to eat and drink, leisure, start-up hubs, childcare services, council services, and much more to support the borough's cultural offerings. And on a ward level, we've driven requests for the council to be flexible, particularly in times of COVID, and allow for outdoor dining in either parking bays or through street closures or streeteries as they're known. But at times, getting buy-in from the council for even the common sense ideas like these felt like an impossible task. And while other local authorities took immediate temporary action, which in many cases have been made permanent since with great success, Haringey's response time and time again was, no, we can't do that. Finding the many reasons why not, instead of working collaboratively towards finding a yes, let's do it. Eventually this spring, we got the council to commit to commissioning a review into streeteries in Crouch End, just as restrictions were loosening and outdoor dining only was allowed. It's now almost December and we still haven't had the outcome of that review. which really demonstrates how little priority there has been towards our high streets, town centres and small businesses during some of the toughest times they have ever faced. With businesses and town centres such an important part of this borough and every community in it, I am left baffled as to why they seem to matter so little to this administration and why trying to make anything happen to support them is such an uphill struggle.
Thank you, Councillor Corey Harrison. The leader.
It's a light one. Okay, sorry, apologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, just in response to the point about the cabinet member, placemaking is the term that's used now, Councillor Corley Harrison, and placemaking is about a whole place approach, which includes high streets, it includes the economy, and it includes building homes, because that's the approach we're taking. So whenever I talk about supporting and reviving our high streets, I'm sometimes met with the attitude that high streets are part of a bygone era and that they must be struggling because they are no longer needed or wanted. So I personally represent Wood Green, which has one of the highest footfalls in London. And while it is true that even in the years leading up to the pandemic, high streets were in decline, struggling to find their place in an increasingly digital world, I believe that our high streets are more important than ever. High streets and small businesses have long been an intrinsic part of the social and economic fabric of our communities, and the council is doing everything we can to secure a bright future for Haringey's high streets and SMEs. Councillor Gordon has named some specific examples, but we work very closely with traders groups in Green Lanes, in Turnpike Lane. I only had a strategic meeting last week looking at Turnpike Lane, looking at the traders, looking at the whole place issues there that exist and supporting them in their endeavours. Wood Green Bid, regular meetings we have with them as well. And this upcoming week, I'll be having a meeting with the Development Trust in Ward's Corner, just to reassure you that we are doing and that we are talking to people directly. So the Council's community wealth building approach will help us create a more resilient borough, taking a people-centred approach to local economic development, which redirects wealth back into the local community and places control in the hands of local people. Our High Streets Recovery Action Plan details how the Council will support town centres through COVID recovery to build a greener future. Initiatives such as the cost savings pilot programme, which has helped hundreds of local businesses save tens of thousands of pounds, and the High Street Network, which brings together the chairs of the borough's town centres to discuss strategic issues and collectively plan for the future. They aim to work with residents and business owners to get the best outcomes for our communities. And we are supporting small businesses through a variety of measures, including the online business directory, an online portal showcasing over 160 local SMEs, the second phase of which will launch next year and offer an online shopping facility. So while I'm proud of the targeted work the Council has done on supporting and growing our high streets and small businesses, it's also important to consider the role of the wider neighbourhood and our infrastructure, that term placemaking. Creating livable neighbourhoods with high quality public realm and affordable housing is critical to the economic well-being of the high street and therefore our local businesses and local economy. Our ambitious house building programme, council house building programme, commits the council to build over 3,000 council homes in the next 10 years, which will help the high street thrive. And projects such as reimagining Wood Green, which will brighten up the town centre through public art and street furniture, will improve the public realm. But we must have good public transport links to our high streets to make them accessible, drive foot traffic, discourage car journeys and improve congestion and pollution, meaning it's absolutely vital that this government put people above politics and deliver a fair funding deal for TfL. Otherwise, London faces a dramatic cut to bus and tube services, which will have a knock-on effect on our high streets. And I ask the opposition to join us in opposing and objecting to the government's current lack of funding for TfL. Our high streets require strategic, multi-level intervention and not only the buy-in, but the active participation of our residents to ensure that we develop our high streets with and for the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Ms. Oops.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, just once. Just once.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, it is working. Okay, I can't hear myself. In April this year, the government introduced new permitted development rights that have the potential to destroy our high streets and commercial centres. Businesses in the new Class C category, which include shops, restaurants, offices and professional services, can now be converted to residential without planning permission. While we all recognise that high streets need to adapt and evolve, the sad irony is that the government sees this as a solution to the decline of town centres, when the reality is that it will be their death knell. The London Forum, in partnership with the British Property Federation and key business associations, have opposed the change, saying it will exacerbate the decline of high streets by encouraging developers to prioritise higher value residential conversions over low value businesses. They stated that putting housing in an uncontrolled and unplanned manner within high streets threatens footfall, reduces the potential for business growth, and threatens the long-term viability of our high streets. It also seriously undermines the recovery of high streets following the pandemic. The extent of the threat is laid bare in a report commissioned by the Town and Country Planning Association, carried out by UCL, which studied the potential impacts on 4 councils across the country. They concluded that in our neighbouring borough of Barnet, 89% of commercial premises could be lost to residential development. Many councils have been nimble on their feet and have already applied to block these new rights. In July, the Lib Dem run Council of Richmond applied to block the new rights in 67 areas of the borough. 14 other councils in London have also applied, but not Haringey Council. In my ward in Highgate, we're likely to see a situation where businesses on the Camden side of our high street are protected, with businesses on the Haringey side having no protection at all. This lack of action also flies in the face of this council's efforts to create walkable neighbourhoods to improve residents' health and well-being, as well as tackling climate change. However, residents need a critical mass of businesses that they can walk to. Furthermore, it appears to be foolhardy not to try and protect business rate income that this council so desperately needs. Haringey Labour claims to be a champion of local businesses. Well, prove it. Drop the current wait-and-see approach to blocking these new permitted development rights. You must act now to protect our high streets.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. 2 minutes 35, very good. Councillor Dowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am grateful to have this opportunity to speak in this debate about the importance of our high streets and small businesses in Haringey. I want to start by thanking and acknowledging every single shop owner, shop worker, small businesswoman, man, right across Haringey. We remain in tough times, and our sacrifice, grit and determination is the lifeblood of our local economy. And I want you to know that members of this council notice you and stands with you. Mr. Mayor, I am a relatively private person, and so not many colleagues will know that my first weekend job as a teenager was working at a restaurant in Green Lanes. People would come from miles not just to buy things, but to meet each other, catch up over a cup of coffee, bump into your friend, receive a smile or kind word, or in other words, enjoy the best of Haringey. This Labour Council has delivered many projects in response to the effects of the pandemic and to honour our obligations to local businesses and high streets. I will highlight a few. This council administrated and paid government grant support scheme to eligible businesses since the start of the pandemic, over 90 million in total. The economic development team launched direct mailboxes and supported over 1,500 businesses across Haringey, from Seven Sisters to Bruce Grove, from Northumberland Park to Tottenham Green, from Muswell Hill to Crouch End during the initial lockdown. The council installed temporary barriers, organising safe queuing and pedestrian flow on the reopening of major retailers. A program of payment widening was launched to help businesses expand their outdoor trade offer during the pandemic and the immediate aftermath of the lockdown. A new Haringey business support program will offer small businesses free one-to-one and ongoing businesses advice and support. Over 400 businesses will be supported to recover from the impact of COVID and start up new businesses. This program will also help businesses grow, expand and create new jobs in our borough. Mr. Mayor, shops, pubs, manufacturers, hotels, hairdressers, suppliers and bakeries and many more small businesses of all kinds are beating heart of our community. And they've adapted brilliantly in challenging circumstances. I am pleased, Mr. Mayor, you have taken such a keen interest in this, supporting our small businesses and visiting a number of them. I know many businesses and services would welcome a visit from you, and I am happy to arrange that. Can I also acknowledge Councillor Gordon and her cabinet colleagues who I know take this issue seriously too. Mr. Mayor, small businesses are the backbone of our local economy, and we are grateful for their contributions, and we stand with them now and always. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hare.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid I'm not even going to be as generous as my colleague Paul in talking about the council and businesses. I've been a member of the High Road West Scrutiny Panel, and through this I've been confronted by the historic and ongoing multiple failures of this council, unchanged over multiple administrations. The attitudes towards, concerns about, and sense of responsibilities towards those businesses in that regeneration area have been, over years, not just regrettable, but reprehensible. Those businesses are local, nearly all second generation, with multiple ethnicities and many women managing them. Most own their own freeholds, enabling them to plan long term and something most expected to pass on. Combined turnover exceeded 10 million in 2017. The employment they provide is often highly skilled and in an area where 1 in 4 are unemployed. Those businesses are clear that they support regeneration. They supported option 1 of the master plan, which retained the business estate. Turning to the council's business charter, the first commitment is regular, honest communication and consultation. If you ask the businesses, that's been zilch, a fail. Dedicated officer for each business, that's a fail. Assistance with business planning, that's a fail. The second and third commitments come into play when the redevelopment starts, but the fourth is endeavouring to help them relocate within the area or borough. For most, at the moment, it will be a fail. Uncommitted is the council even to its own promises. Well, the charter is careful to say it is non-binding. So it should come as no surprise that the one of the available sites big enough to accommodate these businesses, 500 White Hart Lane, was given permission for change of use to housing. Yet again, trust, promise, action all fail. There will be future chances to treat those businesses better, but the council must resolve to look for them and to take them, and to insist that those people who work for the council do better for this small oasis of businesses in the heart of Tottenham. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Hare. 2 minutes 35 seconds. Councillor Say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a councillor in Bounds Green, and when I was first elected, discovered the Victorian Edwardian High Street in Bounds Green called Middleton Road. This was a success story for collaboration between the local community, local businesses and the local authority. Middleton Road had been a difficult street with many problems, including antisocial behaviour, drug dealing and rogue landlords. Local business owners got together to tackle these issues by working together with other residents and the council. They secured grants to refurbish the street frontages of the little shops back to how they were originally conceived. They worked with the council to stop people subdividing their shops and houses into many small rooms. They joined with local residents to put on events in the street like the popular first Sunday of the month street market and the Christmas market. With all this local voluntary work and through establishing good links through councillors to services in the council like the planning department and enforcement officers, Middleton Road was transformed. People could sit outside on the pavement to have their breakfast in the local cafes, to meet and socialise. There's a local community garden on the street which is popular with young families. And proprietors want to own businesses there. It has become more than just somewhere to shop. The pandemic has had an effect, however, with some businesses closing down. We need to pay attention to the needs of the businesses that are still there or incoming to enable them to build back into the vibrant high street that existed before COVID arrived. And it sounds like Councillor Gordon has strategies to do this. Rubbish collection and littering continue to be major issues because of the problems for people who live above shops. New bins for such residents have worked in other locations in the borough, so could help the problem here. The mix of different communities is inspiring and should be held up as a beacon as to what can be achieved if we listen properly as a council to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Say. Can I just gently say to colleagues that, you know, this is 2021, so you can use mobile phones in meetings, but try to give the impression you are taking part in the meeting rather than sitting like this the whole time, just because this is webcast and our constituents want to know we're paying attention. So if colleagues will just be a little bit more attentive to these discussions, I'd be grateful. 2 colleagues have indicated they want to speak. I'm not going to give them 3 minutes, but I should give them a minute each. Councillor Bull.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but after I heard some of the rubbish being espoused by the Leader of the Opposition, I think I'm going to have to refer him to Councillor Chandwani to be a dumping hotspot and love clean streets, because what you said, Luke, just didn't resonate with what I experienced in the 2 years that I was the Cabinet Member. And I have to say, if the Opposition are really serious about wanting to run this council after the next election, really coming to meetings you've done over the last 2 years and engaging with officers, and then coming to a meeting like this and rubbishing what the work of officers is not really good enough, quite frankly. And you ought to be quite ashamed of yourself for what you said tonight in terms of the work that officers have put in. From my perspective, I think the only point I wanted to pick up was something that Councillor Hare made, and I accept responsibility as the Cabinet Member for 2 years, Bob. I think as Cabinet Member I could have done more to engage with those businesses on the Peacock estate, but I do feel confident that my successor in Councillor Gordon has the necessary skills to pick up that portfolio and really engage with those businesses. And I think that's something that I didn't do enough of. So I accept that. And just picking up on what Councillor Sayer said, I think she made a really good point about Middleton Road. I remember it when I came on the council in 2000 when it was in Bowes Park, and it really was an exemplary of all the things that were wrong with Haringey. There was street prostitution, believe it or not, there was drug trafficking, all manners of what have you. And that's a really good example of how we can engage with businesses. So let's stop party politics and let's get together and work with those businesses.
Thank you,
for the better of Haringey.
Thank you very
Mayor.
much, Councillor Carlin. And I will just say gently, the reason why I've given 2 other colleagues the opportunity to speak is because they've indicated they want to make reference to issues in their wards. And if colleagues want us to get through business faster, then they ought to get behind putting more meetings in the diary so we can address the issues that local people care about. So that's the reason why I've offered 2 other people the opportunity to speak, and I hope that's clear. Councillor Carlin, and then I'll go to Councillor Desneves to wind up. Yes, we can hear you. No, we can't hear you, Councillor Cullen, sorry. Press it once. So for all colleagues going forward, you press it once.
Thank you.
And then you can speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I moved into my house in Hornsey over 25 years ago, if you wanted fresh fruit and vegetables, you had to walk or take a bus up to Crouch End or into Wood Green. People spoke with nostalgia about when Hornsey had a bustling high street with banks and supermarket. We did have Mr. Patel across the road who sold almost everything in his tiny shop. And some of the original shops are still there, such as the dry cleaners and the plumbers. But a visit to the supermarket was always a drive across the borough or bus ride to the nearest town centre. Our small businesses have transformed our high street and the lives of us that live at the bottom of the hill. From Intrepid that bakes delicious cakes and bread to the Turkish and Kurdish shops that sell the most wonderful fresh produce, the high street is once again bustling, with people walking from nearby to pick up food, to take their clothes to the dry cleaners, to sit down over a coffee or tea at Bloomers or Hatters. And we were also pleased when a young landlord reopened the 3 compasses. It was during the pandemic that these small shops really showed their value to the community. The chemist where we collected medicines to deliver to those who couldn't get out, the donations to our local food bank. And when the supermarket supply chains couldn't cope with people suddenly eating 3 meals a day at home and the shelves were empty, it was our local shops where you were still able to feed the neighbourhood. We owe them a debt of gratitude. And I've been pleased to see that things have opened and got back to normal. Neighbours are still shopping locally and supporting our local businesses. We all must support our local shops as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlin. Councillor Nevis, and then quite rightly, Councillor Dennison will be winding up the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. During the pandemic, many people have felt a renewed relationship with local high streets. Local streets, as Councillor Carlin indicated, with local services became somewhere we could walk to when other kinds of travel were not possible. As we evolve with COVID, we must redouble our efforts to support local businesses, support positive developments, and discourage the conversion of commercial property on our high street to poor quality accommodation. At the same time, people live above shops, and we must work with landlords to make sure that they fulfil their responsibilities with those residents who live above those shops. We have seen new businesses rise out of the shadow of the pandemic. Grocers, bakeries, florists, and new outdoor eateries, to name a few in my local community. There is a lot of evidence that enabling people to walk and travel actively to high streets stimulates their development and therefore their success. Our public realm and integration working with partners can help make for a positive high street. Campaigns to attract people to the high street and activities like our treasure hunts in the summer and our festive winter campaigns stimulate activity and encourage our community to support these local businesses that played such a key role during the pandemic. I have a strong memory of calling on a local business in the borough who kindly delivered to me at an hour of huge need for my family. I plan to repay that generosity to our local businesses who have in so many cases gone the extra mile and suffered from government confused messages and inconsistencies. And I hope we will all support them and support that local vibrancy of our local high streets.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Blake, do you want to say something for 30 seconds? For 30 seconds before I go to Councillor Dennison. Next time I'll require colleagues in their seats at 7:25 so we can do a test of the microphones and do a roll call. So that's then we can't be accused of filibustering or wasting time.
Well, sorry, Mr. Mayor, and I'm just rushing because you've only given me 20 seconds.
You only asked me.
I need a bit longer. But let me just say, Mr. Mayor, I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the party over there and the comments they have made. They seem to forget that they were part of the coalition, that they let the Tories, didn't they? They let the Tories run the European agenda and look at the mess that we're in now. They failed to deliver the alternative vote.
Point of order.
Sorry,
this seems irrelevant to the debate.
Excuse me.
We could have
Excuse me.
replaced.
Sorry, Councillor Blake.
I'm coming on to
Sorry,
it.
Councillor Blake, just take your seat for 1 second. Point of order.
How's it relevant to the debate?
Well, it's not for me to to make a judgment yet, because I've only given her 20 seconds. So we'll hear a little bit more from Councillor Blake before I make a judgment on whether it's relevant or not. Councillor Blake.
And if we're talking about this council handing over money to developers and big business, well, what about the National Health Service and the privatisation that came under the coalition? So let's start.
Sorry, Councillor Blake, just resume your seat. I hope this is a serious point of order, not a similar one to the Leader of the Opposition.
This is really not relevant to the debate at the moment.
Okay, sorry. I won't have spurious points of order. I dealt with the same one a minute ago, so we're wasting time now. Excuse me, we're wasting time. Councillor Blake, continue.
And
she's had 20 seconds.
Excuse me. We're all adults here, and we'll show a little bit of decorum and common sense. Yes, Councillor Hinchcliffe, is it a point of order?
Yes.
Well, please stand up.
I believe the 20 seconds is now up.
Sit down, please. Sit down.
20 seconds.
That's not a point of order, and you know it's not.
It is.
And the first one I dealt with, and I don't know why two other colleagues have put the same one. Excuse me, Councillor Bate, you can have another 20 seconds.
And I've lost my stride now, Mr. Mayor. Do you know what? Right. I'm actually quite angry at this debate. Do you know? But let me say this, Mr. Mayor. I can forgive all of that. I think.
Sorry.
But,
Councillor Blake, excuse me. Can we have some manners, please? Laughing and heckling and talking to each other is not appropriate. I would stop other people doing the same to you, Councillor Palmer. So yeah, thumbs up for a bit more manners. Councillor Blake, you can have 30 seconds.
Because let me say that the Lib Dems can hand it out, can't they? But they don't like it when people start to respond. Do you know, I think about that great reforming Prime Minister, Lloyd George, and his budget of 1909 that took the shadow of the workhouse away from working class people. This lot probably think I'm talking about George Osborne. But let me say this, I think forgive all of that, Mr. Mayor. What I can't forgive is that it was the Liberal Democrats who supported the Tories in introducing the universal credit. And do you know what that has done? It has trapped our residents. It has trapped our residents.
This cannot be
in
allowed
poverty.
to continue.
So sorry, excuse me, Councillor. Julia, please don't talk over. I heard you say, Julia. Sorry, Barbara. Gosh, I know I've spent a lot of time in schools, but I have to say the assemblies and the school councils I've met have been significantly better behaved than some of the nonsense we're getting now. If you want to make a point of order, you say point of order, and I'll come to you. Point of order.
Again,
and please stand up, Julia.
There is a breach of...
No, we're not dealing with the same point of order. I've dealt with it already.
But she continues to make new statements that continue to breach the point of order. So I don't know what...
It is a matter of
has to do with local businesses.
Okay, Julia, I don't want to waste time. I wanted to get through this meeting.
Indeed.
It is not a matter for me to determine the contents of somebody's speeches. If it's offensive or rude, I'll deal with it. It's a matter of debate that Councillor Blake is putting to the meeting, and it's for her to continue. Now, for all of those colleagues who wanted us to have 20 seconds of this, we're now having several minutes because of spurious points of order that aren't necessary, that would have been irrelevant if we'd allowed Councillor Blake to finish. And I'm now going to give her 20 seconds to give your speech uninterrupted before we move on. And I treat you folks in exactly the same way if others were doing it. Councillor Blake, 20 seconds starting now, then I will stop you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And let me say, they supported the introduction of universal credit, which has trapped our residents in poverty. And I want to say this, they talk about bijou shops. We're the ones that are supporting those residents. We're the ones that are making sure that that there is work for those residents. We're the ones that are making sure that people who should be on universal credit are on universal credit, and those that are on universal credit get jobs.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Mayor, I am very angry by this debate, but someone needs to stand up for this administration and talk about the great work that we have been doing.
Thank you. You almost got a clap from all of your colleagues there, Councillor Blake. Very good. Right, Councillor Dennison to wind up.
Thank you.
And you'll be speaking uninterrupted.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. I just want to start with thanking Mark and Lewis from the Crouch End Traders and Forum. It seems to me that it's taken a pandemic for the council to realise that there's businesses in Haringey. I don't know about everybody else, but it seems to be. I toyed with using this phrase, but Greta is a good one. You're just getting blah 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 from the council. Did you know that there was 3 scrutiny reviews since 2001 that supposedly was about support for local businesses? Nothing has come out of those. That was 20 years ago. One thing that businesses can't do is wait another 20 years of this Labour administration to actually get their act together. We need to learn from local businesses, innovate, find a way. As Luke said, we're having too many obstacles put in front of business. Sometimes the council just needs to get out of the way. Sometimes it needs to help, but you need to find out, and as Bob said, consult properly with businesses to know what we need to do. But we need to take action, as Councillor Morris says. We can't wait for the permitted development things just to happen to us. We have to actually take some action. I just wanted to point out again the apprenticeship example that I had. Now, it's up to this council to transfer up to 25% of the levy funds to small and medium term businesses. Now, as one of the written questions has said today, £1.6 million we've given back to the government because we haven't used it. That could have been £400,000 that we could have handed over to small and medium term businesses in Haringey for training purposes for apprentices. I think it's just absolutely scandalous that isn't going to happen. And just to reiterate, I have no doubt that the business community will get through what the problems that we've been having throughout the pandemic, but the council just seems to not want to help them along the way. It needs to be a partnership. And as for Councillor Bull's comments, I'm glad that you came back into the room, because we are definitely serious about taking over this borough. We would never be rubbishing officers in. The only thing that we are rubbishing is Labour's record with business, because to be honest, it's absolutely shameful. And to hide behind the coalition at this point just seems ludicrous. Do you understand what that looks like to the general public and businesses that are worrying about today, not 15 years ago, they're worrying about today? I honestly think you need to have a look to see what you are actually going to do, because we've had 20 years of nothingness. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes this most exciting of debates. That, just for clarity, that's reference to the behaviour, not to the topic. And I'd like to thank everyone for their participation and occasional misbehaviour. And in particular, I guess, Mark and Lewis, if you're still here, thank you for joining us this evening. Right, item 13. And can I say it's marvellous to see a full public gallery. Thank you for sitting through an hour of your council's deliberations and discussions. Right, item 13, deputations and petitions. As part of this item, I have received 4 deputations which I have accepted due to the timing of the community matters and issues they relate to. We have a petition and a deputation from the Haringey Irish Centre calling for council support to resume activities at the Irish Centre for the Irish community. The second deputation is in relation to the proposed low traffic neighbourhood at Bounds Green area, in the Bounds Green area, and concerns about the consultation process, and a request for more time for residents to scrutinise the consultation paper. The third deputation is from Living Street, who are in support of the low traffic neighbourhoods in Bounds Green, St Anne's and Bruce Grove. And the fourth deputation is from Tanya Inal-Lockie and Dr. Rembrandt Coppola, who are asking for a pause of the procurement process. And if I've said your names incorrectly, please accept my apologies. I hate it when people call me Joji or Joggy. And to commission an independent review of the North London Waste Authority's plans to build an energy from waste incinerator in Edmonton. So, Deputation 1. In accordance with Council Standing Order 12.1, I am accepting this petition received on resuming activities at the Haringey Irish Centre in Tottenham. I will now call on Mr. Sean O'Donovan, who I can see is already primed to speak, who'll be making a deputation on this. Sean, your representation, please come and make your representations to the meeting. You will have 5 minutes in which to do so, and I will be starting the clock now.
Hello, I'm Sean O'Donovan, and together with Mary Prendergast and Joyce Sullivan, and also many other members of the wonderful Haringey Irish Pensioners Group, we're here today to speak to the Council. I would like to thank the Mayor and all of the councillors for this opportunity to restart the conversation about the future of the Irish Community and Cultural Centre in Pretoria Road, Tottenham. The petition before you was written with understandable emotion when news broke that there was a possibility that the Irish Centre may reopen its doors. There was joy that the centre, which offered so much support to so many vulnerable people at their most desperate times of their lives, would return, but also deep worry that the aspects that made the centre so unique may be lost. Things have moved on since the petition was written, and we're very pleased to have a recent meeting with the council leader. The centre is a much-loved community asset, part of Haringey's commonwealth owned by us all. David Lammy recently spoke of his joy that his mother had her last birthday party there. He said, "What I love about the Irish Centre is that it is one of the most inclusive centres. All communities pass through the Irish Centre." Mary Prendergast speaks lovingly about the legendary lunch clubs and tea dances which attracted not just the elderly Irish, but all nationalities. It was a vital support for the most isolated, full of chatter, love and laughter. I'm sure many councillors remember the centre at the best of times as a vibrant hub of activity welcoming to all. The Irish Centre also expanded use of its offices to other organisations in the community, the Polish support group Kith and Kin, as well the School of Irish Dancing. Events run at the centre were never exclusively Irish, but a way of getting more people from whatever background to become involved in the centre. The centre is also home to the national renowned organisation, the Irish in Britain. It carries out research on a number of issues from welfare reform to dementia services. I know that they wish to return to the centre as soon as possible. Having such a respected organisation in the building shows the respect, shows the support that the Irish in Britain organisation has for the borough. The Irish Advice Centre was also a vital part of the centre, as was the food bank. Now, we understand following the liquidation of the Haringey Irish Culture and Community Centre organisation, the centre will operate in a different way. It would appear that the trustees of the previous company did not reach out to support us for help at the critical moments, and this is very regrettable. We urge that whatever the future use of the building, the aspects that made the centre so unique are not lost. The Pensioners Club, the Pensioners Lunch Club and tea dancing, the lounge bar, which is a vital part of the charity events, wakes and celebrations which bring local people together. We must keep that lounge bar area. And of course, the hosting of Spurs supporters pre-match. This is a way of making the centre accessible to more people, but also a money generator. We also understand the council's difficulties in consulting the Irish citizens of Haringey. There hasn't been an organisation bringing the Irish community together since the collapse of the centre. This is much needed to support the well-being of our community, support our history, and a welcoming point for new Irish arrivals. The new organisation that's been formed is the Haringey Irish Association, and we look forward to being an active member of Haringey Voluntary and Community Society and to give all the councillors more information about that. So in terms of the figure, in Haringey, according to the 2011 census, there are over 6,000 Irish-born citizens spread out more or less evenly around Tottenham and Hornsey Wood Green. It's estimated the Irish community in the area can be arrived at by multiplying the Irish-born by 3.5 to include second and third generations. That would result in a figure of over 21,000 in Haringey, but that is probably an underestimation. There are many people, like our own mayor, who is very proud of his Irish heritage. The history of the Irish in Haringey is embroidered into the history of Haringey. Haringey before it was even Haringey. The mass movement of people of the 1870s to Tottenham were the Irish, the Jewish people, the English working class from East London, when the railway companies introduced works when trained. Those communities struggled and campaigned together against fascism, the appalling housing conditions and very low wages. Irish construction workers and nurses came again to Tottenham and Hornsey in large numbers in the 1950s and 60s to rebuild London after the war and to start the NHS. They, of course, played a full part in the social, cultural and political activities of Tottenham, Hornsey and Wood Green. This generation of the 1950s and 60s have particular needs because of their age. They have significant health needs and by most indicators have worse health outcomes, often persistent into the third generation.
Sean, would you mind bringing your remarks to a conclusion, please?
Okay. I mean, we can give councillors details about the health mortalities, physical health, mental health, high levels of alcohol abuse and a higher rate of suicide than any other racial minority.
Could I suggest that if...
And just one more sentence, and I am nearly finished. We welcome a widespread dialogue to discuss all aspects surrounding the future of the centre. We want to make the centre relevant, sustainable, inclusive, and basically great crack for everyone. Slán go Fóill. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Sean. And I didn't mean to cut in. I'm trying to be a bit more disciplined with councillors, but equally I don't want to be told off by members on either side. Can I have an indication of questions, please, for the deputation? Can someone just, so there's... Hold on, right, Rice, okay, Blake, yes. I won't be able to get everyone in, but I'll do my best. Ogio Hamoid. Okay, who should I go with first? Who hasn't spoken? Councillor Ibrahim.
Oh, can you hear me?
Clearly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just like to take this opportunity, Sean, to thank you for your deputation. I'm glad that you've brought this, and I think many people in this room will recognise the important history that community centres have in Haringey. We've got a proud reputation. Some of the centres that you've listed in your deputation, I think it's important to say that they've played an important part of young people's lives in this borough. You know, myself, and I'm going to slightly embarrass the leader here, I actually met the leader of the council at the age of 10 at the Cypriot Community Centre when we were both 10-year-old girls, and we would dance around in national Cypriot costume to folk dancing. So actually, just to point out, on the youth services that were provided at that centre previously, the borough used to deliver youth services from various community centres across the borough. But I think it's important that we now take a look at how we can support those organisations into a pathway to delivering services and the support that communities now need. And I think it's really, really important that you've come to us and raised these issues, and that we continue to support all our communities across the borough and to make sure that they support us in delivering the important services that we need.
Can I ask you a question, please? I'm sorry, this is a question.
Yes, my question is, how do you think the council can help you continue to deliver those services and reach out to your communities in terms of the needs that your community now has?
Thank you. Sean, and by all means, if there's anybody else who in the delegation who wants to answer, they can do. But I do want to try and race through these if we're going to get anyone who hasn't spoken to speak.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, what we want to do is actually make it sustainable, so we're not always going to the council for grants, because I know you have lots of other priorities. In fact, the Irish government, because of their work with the diaspora, the Immigrant Support Fund, have for a number of years given support to the Irish Centre. Obviously they haven't in recent years because there's been no applications made, but we fully intend to make applications to them, because their views are the same as probably the views of the council in terms of the people they want to help, the most vulnerable, the socially isolated, and organisations like that. I suppose what we're asking for is this dialogue with the council. So any changes to the Irish Centre that are made won't mean that all those unique aspects of the Irish Centre won't be lost. We know it's going to be run in a different way, but there has to always be an Irish flavour. And I think my colleagues in particular, they want to, there's such an importance to the Irish luncheon clubs and tea dancing. And again, they may be run in a slightly different way, but we would ask all councillors to ensure that those aren't lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely agree that the Irish Centre definitely does need more support, and also definitely with regards to resuming activities. But when I read the deputation, I was a little bit dismayed because it seems to pit underrepresented and persecuted groups against each other. Do you think that was wise? We're already being prosecuted. We're supposed to support each other. Yeah. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Maybe that wasn't such a wise thing to include in the petition.
Sean?
Yes, well, I agree with you. And I mean, I thank you for all the work that you actually do in the borough yourself. Yeah, I think I said during my speech that it was written with emotion, and I didn't take part in writing it. And actually talking to the people that wrote it, yeah, I mean, I think they felt at that time they were being left behind and ignored. As I said, things have moved on. We're here now talking to everybody. We've also had a meeting with the leader of the council. And I think also in my speech, I said how the Irish community have always worked with other communities, because basically we are, you know, I'm sure you remember, well, not you personally, but you know of those no Irish, no
blacks, no dogs.
No, exactly. Yeah. So we don't want to do anything, and I think my colleagues, my friends here, don't want to do anything that pits one community against each other, because black people have been here a long time, Jewish people have been here a long time. We've always been here a long time. There is a particular, maybe not friendly, but getting better link between Irish and Britain. Yes.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your deputation. I just have very fond memories of the Irish Centre. All my 3 children were Irish dancers of a sort, and we used to regularly attend the Irish Centre for Fesh. And I'm not sure, is the plural of fashion? Anyway, more than one fesh at the centre. My kids went to and thoroughly enjoyed, and were completely unsuccessful, but really enjoyed their time. But my question to the delegation is, over the many years that the Irish community has been in Haringey, how do you think the challenges that the community faces have changed over that time? And just if you could outline that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah.
Joyce, hello.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor. So my name's Joyce Sullivan. Like Sean, I'm a member of our newly formed group, the Haringey Irish Association, and I hope many of you will want to join us. I think the challenges have been many over the last few years. As Sean has outlined, the Irish population has got smaller in our borough, but although it's small, it's an incredibly important population. They have formed a rich part of our history, our multicultural history that is Haringey, and we would hate to see this important home for the Irish community lost. Sean also touched on the issue of the health of older members of the Irish community. The Camden Irish Centre did some works not so long ago around the health outcomes of older people in Camden. Now, their report showed that this was significantly worse amongst the Irish community than amongst the general local population, and that these poor health outcomes start to become significant from the age of 50 onwards. So one of the things that we would like to do is to do some work in Haringey to support our older members and to actually look at what the health needs are, often very hidden health needs, and particularly amongst older single men, for example. And we would like to have an opportunity to work with some of the many wonderful London organisations and charities that work particularly with older people, such as the Ashling Project, which specifically supports older single Irish men. So what we would very much like to do is to use an invigorated, a renewed community hub for Irish people in the borough and reach out and work with the many organisations that are doing some sterling work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will try and squeeze a couple more in. I need one sentence for members and nothing more than that, and I will cut you down. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I didn't think I was going to get called.
Oh, you told me, yes.
Well, I'd like to welcome all this group here to this meeting. As you know, I've been involved with the Irish Centre for more than 30 years, and would like you also to come back. But I'd like to point on one item.
Just a question, please.
Well, I wanted just to say for Julia's benefit, that part of the Irish Centre is people from Montserrat who see themselves as the Green Irish.
Can I suggest that you have a little chat with Julia about that outside the meeting? Okay. Just a question, because I want you to put it. My question is, would you be content for the council as presently maintaining the building and to oversee all future bookings? This will remove from you the strain of raising funds to pay for the utilities in the building and thus return the centre to full use for the people of Haringey. So would you be content for the council to carry on maintaining the building and looking after the building, taking the bookings? Thank you. Sean?
That's a very good idea. Thank you. Yeah, I think things have changed in that the central organisation that used to run the building isn't with us anymore, and I actually agree with a lot of what the council have been doing over the last few years in insourcing, and this seems to be a particular brilliant idea of insourcing, that the council, as you said, maintain the building, run the building, and I mean there is profit in terms of if we can get Spurs back for their parking and their pre-match thing, that does raise quite a lot of money, and I think the Irish community would be very happy for that to go to the wider good.
Thanks, Sean.
Works of the council, but obviously it's part of the conversation. Thank you.
One sentence, Councillor Guinness. Only if you want to.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's working. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a really quick comment.
No, sorry. Only a question. Sorry, I've been very clear.
I just wanted to say that in my role as a councillor, I actually referred a number of vulnerable local residents to Irish Centre who were not necessarily Irish, and Irish Centre helped them a lot. And when I went with some of them, took them in person there. Actually, I saw in waiting to be seen by the specialist advisor, which was at that time very low in Haringey, was basically representative of Haringey Tottenham community. I think Irish Centre was a very important resource for our local community, not only for our Irish community, for our all community.
Thank you.
I just want to ask Sean a quick question.
Excuse me.
Would you want
Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just coming to my question.
Just resume your seat a second, please. I was very clear with members of the opposition who were rude and interrupted earlier that we had to show some manners and focus. I want to get as many people in as possible to speak, which is why I've called you over people like Councillor Bull and Councillor Rice, who've already spoken tonight. But I do need colleagues to work with me here. So when I ask for a question, I need a question and nothing more. So if you can put a question, Councillor Gunness, very quickly to Sean, then we can continue. And that means what, how, rather than...
It's okay, Mr. Mayor. You can move to the next
Okay,
speaker.
thank you very much indeed. Councillor Moeed.
Thank you, Sean. My question is, what steps are you taking to ensure that the new entity will be sustainable and it does not suffer the same fate as the old organisation?
Thank you,
and
Sean.
what support we can give you?
Okay, thank you. I just want to say first to Matt Bulley, she's a real great friend of the Irish community, and I'm sure we'll be working very closely with her. In terms of your question, yes, there were mistakes made, clearly. I think nobody involved at the moment were involved before, and I think at key points they didn't reach out, because there were, as soon as, I think it happened very quickly, even people who were service users, the people that had offices, didn't know it was going to happen until they were told they couldn't come in the morning afterwards, and the receivers were called in, and then suddenly the whole building was closed down. And but they could have, but as soon as after that, in the press, the Irish Embassy, the MP, the council, I think it was Mark Blake, took a role in saying he would have been able to help more if he'd known more was going to happen. So I think we want to be outward going now. We want to say, help us.
Thanks, Sean. Two final colleagues. One question. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Sean, and to all of you. I just really want to ask, well, about the access to funding. And perhaps this, you have talked about that
Question, please.
You will be running the centre in a different way.
Yeah.
So have you thought about funding streams and where you are going to get the money for that from?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're not actually saying at the moment we're going to run it. I mean, I think the two things are separate. There's the reopening of the Irish Centre, and then there's the Haringey Irish Association. And the Haringey Irish Association is actually to hear the voices of the Irish community and then amplify those back to the council. And we will be, as soon as situations allow, we will be having public meetings where we'll be talking, we've shown to a lot of people, we'll be talking to much more people. And I think that we will be hoping to do other things outside of the centre. In terms of who runs the centre, that is something that's open to this discussion, but in terms of income streams, the Irish government, I think uniquely in the world, is saying if you're an Irish organisation and you're helping the most vulnerable people of our country in your area, there is money available. It obviously has to be applied for properly, and there's
Thank you,
to make
Sean.
sure we deal with it. I mean, but there's lots of other income streams that we could access.
Councillor Bull, last one sentence.
Yep. So my question is about the previous relationship the Irish Centre had with Tottenham District Charity that I declare I'm a trustee of for a number of years. We referred a number of...
Question, please.
We got a number of applicants from the Irish Centre. What are those applicants able to do now that the Irish Centre isn't in existence? What opportunities are available for them to get the help they need to apply for the grants? Thank you.
Sure. I think that's the hidden... they're the hidden needs, because when the doors closed, the people we were helping, and I think, as Joyce was saying, a lot of them are very isolated, particularly men, either older men or younger men, who won't go asking for help. And one of the brilliant things the Irish Centre did, the advice service did, but also the Haringey Irish pensioners did, is they went out and they found people and they spoke to them, and they had something to drink with them or something to eat with them, and then got round to the conversation about what sort of help would you need. And that was one of the unique things about the Irish. They reached people who couldn't be reached in any other ways.
Thank
so
you,
those
Sean.
people
I'm going to have to stop
probably
you there.
have the needs but aren't being reached.
Leader, can I come to you to wind up for the response to the deputation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the deputation tonight. So let me just first start by acknowledging, which so many of my colleagues have, the deep and rich history that the Irish community has in Haringey, and that the Irish Centre has been a community anchor for the Irish and the wider local community for decades, and we do want it to stay that way. So for reassurance, the council will enable the community to continue to use the Irish Centre, including by organisations supporting the Irish community in the borough. So recently, as has already been said, I did meet with members of the Irish community, including Sean Lords, the newly constituted Haringey Irish Association, I believe, and rather significantly and poignantly, that meeting took place at George Meehan House a couple of weeks ago. So just by way of an update in terms of what is happening with the centre, and I should say that I do hope that conversation is the start of many conversations, and you know, your deputation tonight has indicated that that's the way you'd like to go. So in terms of the centre itself is undergoing renovation and refurbishment works at the moment. £150,000 worth of renovation, which aims to make the centre lively and well used and to bring communities together in a revitalised space. So there will be engagement with a wide range of stakeholders when the works are completed, including with the Haringey Irish Pensioners Group, and it is proposed that some of the space at the Irish Centre is allocated to the Grace organisation to provide older people's day opportunities. And the intention is that this will sit alongside other building users and promote collaboration between the different organisations in the building. So the proposal is for the Grace organisation to use parts of the ground and first floor for day service provision, and this would be from spring/summer 2022. And in terms of the Grace organisation, they're due to move due to the funding deadlines for High Road West. And for those of you who are familiar with Grace are an organisation of Black Caribbean origin, founded, I can't believe I've not brought the notes here, but around 40-50 years ago. So the idea is that they'll be moving and using some of the space in that centre to work with older people. The council will manage the spaces at the Irish Centre, at least in the short term. Expected running costs, around 100k a year, and all agreements with the existing licensees have been regularised, and all intend to continue to occupy the building, which will be possible soon once the compliance works have been completed. And the licensees do include Irish in Britain and the Irish Causeway Housing Association. So there are some firm commitments there. As I said, we did meet a couple of weeks ago, and we hope for that conversation to continue. But thank you for coming along tonight. Really good to see you, and hope to see you very soon as these conversations and discussions progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Sean, and all those who've come this evening. I hope you enjoyed seeing your councillors at work. Now, by all means, stay if you'd like to. But it's cold and it's late, so if you want to go home, no one would pass any judgment. Deputation 2. Stephen Weiss, are you there? Hi, Stephen. Would you like to come and give your deputation, please?
Good evening. I'm Stephen Bryce. I'm here to talk about the consultation on the Bounds Green LTN, with particular reference to Area C, which is the area bounded by Durnsford Road and Bounds Green Road. In 2015, the Supreme Court ruled on a Haringey Council decision in the Moseley case. It reaffirmed the principles of public consultation, and it laid particular emphasis on fairness when consulting on a preferred option. The establishment of an LTN in Bounds Green is such a preferred option. Bounds Green C is under 0.25 of a square kilometre. It's the lowest area classification in TfL's strategic neighbourhood analysis, and it's easy to walk or cycle across it in a few minutes without being obliged to by a planter. The analysis states that small areas may derive limited benefit from LTNs unless there is an acute rat running issue, and that authorities should take account of local knowledge. Now, Area C residents don't need to live on the particular route affected to know that there's sometimes an acute rat run problem from Durnsford Road through to Bounds Green Road. They know equally well that otherwise our small network of roads has minimal traffic throughout the day, and this is something that LTN proponents, particularly those who live outside the area, have great difficulty in grasping the lightness of the traffic. The petition that the council recently accepted showed opposition of well over 90% to the present scheme. It also submitted a proposal for timed cameras, to which residents would themselves be subject, which would effectively eliminate the single identified problem in the area. Now, the councils argue that in holding a consultation, it's going beyond what was required, but be that as it may, There's a renowned commentary on consultation by Clive Sheldon QC, who happened to represent Haringey in the Moseley case. This begins, whether or not there is in law an obligation to consult, where consultation is embarked upon, it must be carried out fairly. This process and consultation has been a mess, and therefore, in our view, unfair. It's partly through incompetence, partly conflicting messages, and partly omission. As part of resident engagement, Sustrans hosted 2 online co-designed workshops. A number of neighbours in our small road registered, but on logging in were furious to find out that the meetings were already full and thus inaccessible. I'm sure they weren't alone. Sustrans must have known the numbers registered for these important events. They had a responsibility to have organised a higher capacity video link, considering there were obviously no face-to-face drop-in sessions. Sustrans also held sessions with representatives of interested local groups, yet somehow omitted to invite Bounds Green and District Residents Association, which represents the whole enclave of Area C. Conflicting messages. A council written answer to questions from an LTN discussion in February said resident support was essential. The very next answer states that any opposition would be balanced by considering wider criteria. Note, not significant opposition or measurable opposition, but any opposition. At the online workshop, Sustrans stated that the consultation wasn't a referendum. Yet lamppost placards urged residents to tell us what you think, offering a legitimate expectation that their opinions would carry proper weight. But how could they when the February responses effectively indicate that consideration of wider objectives would override any opposition at all? The council didn't clarify publicly that the consultation was part of a multi-stage process towards an experimental traffic order with a 6-month trial period. It could easily have explained that in a simple paragraph in the consultation document, but omitted to do so. The document gave residents no opportunity to comment on the discrepancies I've described. It certainly asked for further comment, but it restricted answers to the options proposed or alternatives. The February responses stated that the council would classify comments according to a series of themes. This indicates to us that algorithms will search for keywords connected only to the proposals and alternatives and will disregard anything else. It's a self-contradictory tangle.
Stephen, 30 seconds.
Right. Catherine West MP agrees. She told Councillor Carter and residents at a recent meeting that the consultation had gone awry. Now, the Cabinet is due to consider this LTN in December. We have already, as the Mayor said, requested deferment so that residents may study the consultation report and particularly its interpretation. We now understand that the traffic data will not be available by December. How can you anyway make a sound decision without this material evidence? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, in accordance with Council Standing Order 11.9, are there any questions from colleagues? No, and I will be making a point. Oh, excuse me, sorry, Councillor Carlin. And I will be making a point to colleagues shortly that it's very disrespectful to walk out of a meeting when members of the public are speaking. Councillor Carlin. Oops, perforated eardrums all around.
Sorry, so is your main concern at the moment that the consultation wasn't properly carried out with regard to what has happened?
Sorry, Donna, question.
That's what I've asked.
Right, thanks. Stephen?
I think we appear to be dealing with a predetermined decision. Certainly when Catherine West met Councillor Carter and a group of residents, including my wife, she did suggest that a CPZ sort of consultation would have been more appropriate. Now, Ealing Council, as you may know, has just rescinded 7 of its 9 LTNs, having carried out a CPZ style consultation, i.e. yes or no. It's a very difficult thing to see exactly what this consultation was or what it hoped to achieve. So it's, I mean, we've got reservations about what the proposals are, because some of them seem more designed to meet.
Stephen, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to draw your answer to a close, please.
Right. Okay, well, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At what point would you consider that there had been enough consultation on this?
Well, I think consulting when there appears to be a predetermined decision really sort of precludes what our idea of consultation is. It's the petition that we made was a very properly made one. People were shown the maps of all the options, and it seems to have been much better conducted than the consultation, because there was misleading by omission of the context of the consultation, no, they gave 5 weeks, but the whole thing that the Sustrans it was very unclear whether Sustrans were they speaking for the council when they said this wasn't a referendum. If they were speaking, if they thought they were speaking for the council, was it proper that they should be? They're proposed to be objective advisors.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. No other questions? I'm sorry, Councillor Williams, I'm going to move on. Sorry. You both asked questions in the previous round. Councillor Carter, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Stephen, for your deputation, and thank you for continuing to engage with the council in relation to the proposed Bounds Green LTN. Your concerns are noted, and what I would like to say is that in terms of this process, Haringey Council have had an unprecedented engagement over these schemes in relation to any other scheme, I think, in the capital. So we have, I mean, from last year's 2020 street space implementations, where a lot of the time schemes went in without any consultation at all, we took the view that we should engage as extensively as possible. And that was ahead of the latest guidance from the government this year, which was that that there should be extensive engagement and consultation. The government also put in their guidance, their latest guidance, that these consultations on these schemes are not referenda. They're not referendums, and that the purpose of these consultations and the purposes of any engagement is to gain as much intelligence, as much information from local people about the way that their streets operate and the way that traffic flows or doesn't flow within those areas, and the general traffic issues. So, you know, in terms of what we've done, we've had a series of engagement stages. Stage one, we heard from 650 people, and that was feeding into a map which highlighted all of the issues, and there were several hundred issues noted, including in Area C. In Stage 2, as you mentioned, we had the design workshops, of which 150 local people engaged and fed into the designs. And then in Stage 3, which was the public consultation phase, 1,500 responses were made to that consultation for the Bounds Green area. So, you know, throughout this process, we've listened closely to feedback and comments, including from yourself, which has helped to develop and refine the emerging proposals. These proposals will go to Cabinet for a decision on December the 7th, and they will be at that point will be provided with a comprehensive consultation report which will help inform that decision. The decision on December the 7th is not the end of the story. The LTNs are an experimental policy, and we will continue to assess impact, engage with the community, and adjust the design of the LTN accordingly. The key here is that motor traffic is the third largest source of carbon emissions in the borough. We've just had COP26, where the urgency of the climate emergency has been underlined and understood by millions of people around the world. We locally have a health emergency with people suffering from respiratory diseases, with an obesity, major obesity issues, depression and mental health issues. We can do something about these, and I know that you join me in understanding that there is a problem with traffic in the Bounds Green area, and it's just a question of how we come to that, how we come to the final solution to that problem. And as I've said, this is something that we will be working on as we go along. This is not this. So the next phase, stage 4, if you like, would be based on the cabinet decision. If that goes ahead, that will be another phase of consultation where we will be listening to you and collecting data extensively before making a final decision on the scheme itself.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Excuse me, Mr. Vice, I'm sorry, there's no provision for you to respond, so I'll thank you very much for your deputation. Right. Time is ticking, so I'm having to be a little bit more hardcore with everybody. By all means, stay if you'd like to, but thank you very much indeed. Right, Deputation 3, I call the third deputation, James Orfnast, accompanied by Sally Booth. Are you both there? Do you want to come forward? Please. And I believe we're being joined by Mohammed El Jauhari and Leonardo Guy online. Is that correct? Oh, Mohammed, you're here. Hi, good to see you. Leonardo, are you there? If so, yes. Hold your feet. Good. Hello, yes. Greetings. Yeah. So there's 5 minutes. Are you all speaking?
Yes.
Okay, so, well, you divide it how you want, but there's 5 minutes, and at 5 minutes I'll have to stop the deputation. So, Sally, over to you.
Right, good evening. I'm Sally Booth. I live in the proposed Bounds Green LTN area. My colleagues, Leonardo Guy, who's online from Bruce Grove.
Sorry, excuse me, Sally. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Councillor, you had a declaration of interest to make. Or so your Chief Whip told me.
Yes, a personal non-prejudicial interest. I live in the Bounds Green LTN area.
Right, thank you. Sorry, Sally.
Oh, okay.
Back to you.
Right. Well, my colleagues Leonardo Guy from Bruce Grove, who is going to be online with us later, and Mohammed El Jauhari from St Anne's, are here to support the 3 LTN trials. Now, some of you may know, may recognise me at least, as chair of the 14%, a Haringey-based group run by and for disabled people. We campaign for the voices of disabled people to be heard, and I'm here tonight with the backing of the 14% Management Collective. In the spirit of nothing about us without us, we object to some of the anti-LTN groups claiming to speak on our behalf without any consultation with us. I won't presume to say that all disabled people support the LTNs, but despite the claims of some anti-LTN campaigners, LTNs are not bad for disabled people per se, and all disabled people are not against LTNs. Now, I also represent Bounds Green residents who want the chance to try the LTN. Removing the large numbers of often speeding vehicles from our residential area would more than compensate for any inconvenience experienced by drivers. Crossing the road shouldn't be scary, but several of my neighbours and I have been verbally abused and threatened by angry drivers for not being quick enough. Parked vehicles are regularly damaged, some have been totaled by rat runners. It's a miracle nobody's been seriously hurt or killed. I live in a multi-generational family. My son, a member of the emergency services, works irregular and unsocial shifts. but he's in favour of trialling the LTN and feels that protecting his loved ones is more important than any time added to his commute. His 11-year-old daughter and her friends can't play outside or ride their bikes. The traffic on our little roads make it just too dangerous. Please proceed with the trials. We've got to try something.
Thank you, Sally.
Okay,
Leonardo.
over to Mark.
Leonardo, are you there?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hello. Can you see me?
We can't see, but we can hear. So do you want to crack on? Something's happening.
Okay.
There you are. Hello.
Okay. Okay. Hello. I'm Leonardo. I attend a school in a low traffic in Bruce Grove's low traffic neighborhood. And all my life, well, all the three schools that I've been throughout my life, Parkview School, Chestnuts Primary School, and Woodlandsburg Nursery have been currently in the proposed one of the proposed low traffic neighborhoods. And every day when I walk to school, I see situations where children, including myself, have been put in danger by cars speeding on roads that are technically considered residential, but actually have many drivers driving at very high speeds and have also walking to school, I've breathed in far too many fumes for a route that doesn't go along any main roads. My lungs have been irreparably damaged by this, and they have put me at a higher risk of, as with all other young people, a higher risk of asthma and childhood cancers, which is completely unacceptable, and it is very preventable by the proposed low traffic neighborhoods. I think that there should definitely be action on this because it doesn't affect everyone equally. Young people are affected by this a lot more because we are living in these low traffic neighborhoods now, which aren't low traffic, and we're breathing in all of these horrible toxic fumes, and we're at higher risk of disease. And so this is wrong. Thank you.
You have 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Thank you, Leonardo. My name is Mohammed. I'm a resident in the St Anne's ward. I'm part of a group of over 250 residents who are in support of the plans for an LTN. St Anne's ward has a number of schools, as Leonardo has said. It has low car ownerships and a lot of through traffic. I experience the impacts of this traffic every day. When I walk my children to school and nursery, we have to take extra care when crossing the roads. I would love to cycle with them more regularly, but it's just not safe enough. Only 2 weeks ago, a cyclist was a victim of hit and run just meters from my front door on one of the roads that will be closed as part of the measures proposed in the St Anne's LTN. Our streets have been carrying more and more traffic each year, which they were never designed to do. Since the rise of sat-navs, cars find their ways into our neighbourhoods and use them as rat runs. The LTN trials will give us all a chance to experience something different, to create a better sense of neighbourhood, encourage more residents to get out and be more active, to reduce pollution and to start to tackle the climate emergency. We have the opportunity to genuinely improve the well-being of residents by making a change. This change can't happen overnight, but it's essential we get started now. We urge your support for the LTN trials in Haringey. Thank you.
And that is 5 minutes. Thank you. Very good. Actually, it was 5 minutes and 3 seconds, but you know, who's counting? Very impressive. Okay, right. Any questions, please, from colleagues? Just get your names. Brabazon. So that's 4, right? Yep. Okay. Councillor Brabazon.
Is it working?
Just a question, please.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank all the people.
No,
who
sorry,
wrote to
Zena,
me.
the question.
Okay. I'd like to ask the deputies, and I don't mind who answers. When the LTNs are implemented, what do you think are the most important things to do to continue working with the local authority on all the issues that have been raised around air quality, low traffic, and all the other issues, active travel? How would you see working with us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
As opposed to the experience of the previous deputation, we had quite a good experience with the council during the consultation process. I would say continuing that behaviour, that interaction, the questions, the sessions, continue monitoring and making sure that you record things and understand how things have been going, to reflect on them and improve things, as Councillor Hakata said.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wondered if you can, if you've got an example of where an LTN has worked successfully.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the question.
Hi there, Jack Mazels from the Bruce Grove area. We're just residents living in the areas. We're not sort of technical experts, but we have looked into some of the examples around London that have been going on recently. And what we found, what we saw when we looked at the evidence is, generally speaking, there hasn't been this disaster of a sea of traffic moving onto the main roads. There have been some exceptions, which some specific roads that haven't worked so well. But actually, there's also been examples where the main roads, I think there's some new data coming out from Hackney yesterday or today, where the main road traffic actually went down. So basically, to say that we shouldn't even try this might be denying us the opportunity to actually reduce main road traffic. It's really, until you actually try it in practice, it's really hard to say what will happen, but we think it will be.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ajay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What would your message be to those who are opposed to the LTN trials?
Another one I like. Thank you.
Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen?
Good. Great. Thank you for the answer. Councillor Desnevis.
Thank you. Do you think that LTNs can impact active travel, in particular for people who are often excluded? I'm thinking of women and safety, for example.
Absolutely. I think it will promote active travel. It will promote people getting out of their homes, walking more, taking less short car journeys, walking to local shops. I think the improvement to small businesses, local businesses within and on the boundaries of LTNs will improve. I think you'll get less through traffic that will stop for a quick snack, but you'll get a lot of people sitting down outside their local cafe. So I think there'll be a lot more active travel, a lot more cycle journeys, a lot more walking journeys, a lot more taking the kids out. I think it'll be a great impact throughout the year, not just in the summer months.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
Thanks. Just like to ask the deputation if they agree with me that these first 3 low traffic neighbourhoods in Haringey aren't about making some areas nicer at the expense of other areas that don't get LTNs, but are part of a phased plan as set out in the draft walking and cycling action plan to introduce low traffic neighbourhoods throughout the borough and make all our neighbourhoods safer, less polluted and more pleasant places to be, live, work and...
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it'd be a shame if this was the first 3 and these 3 were going to somehow make their areas better solely and not include other areas. I'd hope that in the future other areas were included in the plans and LTNs are rolled out throughout the neighbourhood. I think it's not just about 3 areas, but you've got to start somewhere. As far as I understand, the council funding is limited and doing 20 in 1 year is not going to be possible. I'd hope that next year there were more consultations and the year after and so on different areas. No, I think it's going to be a positive impact for the entire borough, starting with 3 of the worst areas with the most through traffic.
Thank you, Mohammed.
And the most pollution and the most schools and small children as well.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to Leonardo, Sally, and James for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Carter, can I give you a minute to respond, please? Since it's a similar deputation to the previous one.
Okay, yeah, it is similar, and although coming from a different direction. Thank you very much for that deputation, and thank you for your support for our project, our programme, and these schemes. It was very good to hear from Sally. It's something that we've taken very seriously, which is engaging with disabled people and their carers. We had a disabled peoples and carers survey, which had a lot of input. We've engaged with other disability groups and are looking to build a partnership with a disability-led organisation, and would love to obviously talk to your organisation as well. Absolutely, and it was great to hear from Leonardo and his personal experience of the disproportionate impacts of motor traffic, as he pointed out. Absolutely, it is disproportionate on vulnerable road users, such as young people, but as well as people on low incomes. And in this borough, only 40% across the borough have access to a car or own a car, but it is on those 40% that the disproportionate impact of the negative impact of motor traffic lands. So it is absolutely essential that as you pointed out, with the Walking and Cycling Action Plan, which lays out an ambitious programme of 25 low traffic neighbourhoods to be rolled out over the coming years. And I hope that these 3 are the first. And all I would say is that especially for the last 10 years, people of Haringey have been begging for solutions to these problems, not just now, not just from COP26, for years and years and years, and it's time that we now start delivering on those promises. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, thank you to the deputies, Councillor Carter. Now go to the last deputation, and I believe Councillor Carter, Councillor Keys have got to leave the room, so if you don't mind doing that as soon as possible, please, because we can't go on until you've left. Hope you've got your wallet, Mike. Others who have just been made deputation, by all means stay, but otherwise, if not, perhaps take the opportunity to leave now. Okay, they're both gone? Yeah, I will call, on the 4th deputation, Tanya and Dr. Koppel, are you there? Are you both online, are you?
We're here, Mr. Mayor.
Hello. Right, okay, yes, sorry, turn on your cameras and microphones. 5 minutes for you both, please. Do you want to start now?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dear Mr. Mayor, dear Councillor of Haringey, the North London Waste Authority will make a critical decision on Thursday the 16th of December on whether or not to award the contract for building a new 700,000 ton energy from waste incinerator in Edmonton Enfield. Councillor Hakata and Councillor Diakides as Haringey representatives at the NLWA Governing Board have the power to make history. XR Zero Waste calls upon Haringey Council to instruct these councillors to vote against signing this contract until Haringey Council has conducted due diligence on whether the Edmonton incinerator represents value for money and is compatible with the climate emergency. The NLWA has made public statements that they have considered all the alternatives to incineration, and that building the incinerator is the best environmental alternative to treating North London's waste. This is not the case. In the 2015 alternative assessment, the NLWA has not evaluated the range of available mixed residual waste sorting technologies, in combination with an integrated plastic sorting plant for high-quality plastics recovery and recycling. The development of these technologies already today can result in a close to net zero carbon waste system based on recent research in the UK called the Economia, without adding any costs, as opposed to the dreamed-of introduction of a carbon capture and storage facility for the new incinerator at an unknown future date, which requires investment of at least £100 million. The The NLWA states in recent communications that mixed residual waste sorting facilities are underperforming and not a solution for dealing with North London's waste. Unfortunately, the NLWA is here not fully aware of recent technological advances and is referring to older, outdated facilities. Two state-of-the-art facilities, in particular that have become operational in the last 2 years, demonstrate the circular economy potential of mixed residual waste sorting. The first of these facilities is in Norway. It's operational since 2019, IVAR IKS facility, which with the aid of 22 optical sorters covers 80% of plastic, 5 high-quality plastics, 85% of drink cartons, and close to all paper, card, and metals from the residual mixed black bag waste. This facility integrates plastic flaking and washing to manufacture 98% pure plastic granules as a recycling stock, equivalent to cake quality. The remaining, mostly organic materials are incinerated at the adjacent energy consumption sites. The second is the built Renaissance facility close to Manchester, operational since 2020. This facility uses enzymatic processes to separate organic from dry recyclables, combination with a wide concentration and anaerobic digestion, biogas, electricity, and heat generation. The result is a total recovery of 70% of the total residual waste material stream, alongside biogas-based electricity and heat that can be utilized in a heat network. This includes the majority of plastics, drink cartons, paper and card, food waste, and glass, leaving only 30% of residual textiles, inert materials, and rejected materials, processed into a fuel for incineration elsewhere. These facilities are designed specifically from the outset to enable as much recovery from our residual waste as possible, and most importantly, to get as much plastics out of the waste stream before incineration as possible. In contrast to other mixed waste sorting plants in England, which the NLWA cites as example, and that have failed to deliver because they are not designed to recover high quality grade plastics. Mixed waste sorting facilities, and I come to a close, combined with plastic sorting, do not yet fully replace the need for energy from waste incineration, but they can, however, reduce by 50% or more the amount of waste that needs to go to incineration, generate a large economic income stream from selling recyclable materials, potentially 10 to 30 million pounds per year at the scale of London, and create a near zero carbon waste management system. The technologies are available from international technology into engineering and cost-effective.
Thank you, Dr. Cobbler. I'm going to have to stop you there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, right. Questions? Who else?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, hold on. Question?
No, we are trying to move a motion by notice.
Right.
So in accordance with Standing Order 14J and C, we think given the importance of the motions being discussed today and the serious concerns raised by residents, I think it's crucial we get to the motion immediately. So I would like to move that we move to the next business immediately and change the agenda item so that we discuss the item 14 ahead of 15.
Well,
seconded. Yeah, to discuss agenda 15 ahead of 14.
Yes, okay.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on. Councillor Rice?
Yeah, I'm afraid that the council has not got the procedure quite right. There's a matter before the meeting which needs to be concluded before we consider other things. So let's get this item concluded, then turn our minds to other things.
Well, indeed. I mean, that was going to be my response, not least because the issue we're discussing now is the same issue as the motion, so it makes much sense to...
According to the rules, you can ask to move to the next business.
Okay, well, we'll listen to the monitoring officer first then.
Mr. Mayor, I can confirm there would have to be a vote on that motion that's been moved.
Just repeat the motion for us, Julia, and then we'll have to put it to the meeting.
The motion is to move on to the next business and also order the agenda item so we discuss agenda 15 instead of agenda 14.
I'm just checking something because I'm not sure whether you can do two things in one motion, can you? Because, well, hold on a second, Luke, because I'm just not sure. You're trying to do two things at one time. And I'm not sure that's procedurally correct. So there'd have to be two separate motions. You have to move next business first, which would have to be 1 second, which would have to be supported by members of council, and then once you've moved that, you then have to propose to vary the agenda. So shall we put the first vote, so the first motion is that we interrupt the deputation and then move on. Right. As many, are those in favour of the motion to move on and end this particular item, raise your hands. Just count those first, please. And just in the meantime, apologies, Dr. Coppola and Tanya, that these procedural points have been raised at this stage. 14 in favour. All those against?
Shocking.
Hands up, please.
Yes. 26 against. That's the first motion. That's the first motion. Any abstentions? Any abstentions?
Yeah, because that makes 40, that's 40 here. Right, so we won't be interrupting the current item. Oh yes, Councillor Tucker.
Chair and colleagues and to the delegation, thank you very much.
Is this a question to?
This is a question.
Right, sorry, just resume your seat a moment, please. Just resume your seat a moment, please. Thanks very much indeed. We have, as you'll know, if you're listening, 2 motions before the meeting. One has just been dealt with. Can I just confirm, Fiona, whether we go straight to the second one or do we continue with the deputation? Because the first motion has fallen about moving to the next business.
Extending standing.
No, so the next motion was to vary the agenda. Right. Julia, move your motion, please.
Thank you. I'd like to move that we vary the agenda, please, so that we'll discuss agenda 15 first.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Right, seconded. All those in favour of varying the agenda, so you take item 15, which is the motions immediately after the conclusion of this current item. And I will just remind colleagues that it is now 21:57. All those in favour? Hands up, please. (14) in favour. All those against changing the agenda? Same number, right. Okay, so we will now go back to Dr. Coppola and Tanya, who've brought a deputation to this meeting. And as I say, apologies that procedural business got in the way. I think it's always important that residents are heard. Questions? Councillor Palmer, and then I'll come back to Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. I would just like to apologise to our deputation for that interruption, but I would like to ask them if they too believe that councillors in this room are attempting to stall a really important motion discussion
please.
This evening. That is a question. So just a yes or no answer would be great. Thank you.
On the meeting, thanks. Okay, Dr. Coppola, Tanya?
I'm not aware of internal party politics. I would ask the mayor if it's possible to take all the questions offline from the councillors and move on to the next agenda item.
I'm sorry, Dr. Coppola, as you aren't quite yet a member of the council, so you're not able to...
of course not, but I am a participant to this meeting, so
But I will just gently say that... there is an election in May, so by all means stand. We're looking to have as many good local people stand as possible, irrespective of which party you think best reflects your values. So I'm not able to do that, but let's go to Councillor Tucker. And I need questions, please.
Chairman, thank you. And I'd like to assure the delegation of the strength of feeling in support.
Sorry, Councillor Tucker, question.
In
Starts
support
with how, what, where.
I would like to ask the delegation, firstly, if they are aware of the strength of feeling within the Labour movement in support of what they are asking for in terms of pause and review, including local political figures.
That's one question. You've asked it. Please resume your seats. Dr. Coppola, did you get the first bit of Councillor Tucker's question?
No comments on the question.
Are you aware? Are you aware of support in the Labour movement for your aims and ambitions? Councillor Tucker, please resume your seat.
Yes, we are aware of large support at the CLP level and also at the Mayor of London's level, including personal communications.
Thank you, Dr. Cobler. I'm sorry, it is now 10 o'clock. As the time has reached 10 o'clock, I refer all members to Council Standing Order 8.1I that council meetings should end at 10 p.m. As Mayor, I have discretion to allow deputations to complete, which is the current item of discussion. So I will allow the Cabinet member, in this case the leader, to respond, at which point I will close the meeting. All questions will be provided a written answer, which will be circulated to colleagues, presumably in the coming days. The motions will currently fall, but will be rescheduled for the next meeting. So, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the deputation. We do understand the strength of feeling and the concern of local residents on this issue, and for that reason we can commit tonight to working with other London boroughs to set up a forum which will work with local communities to discuss the future of waste disposal and focus on the concerns regarding the Edmonton facility and the methods for increasing recycling rates. So we can give that commitment tonight. But just to say a bit more, so I myself didn't fully understand the need for a new incinerator at one point, but it is important that we're not just knee-jerk and we don't just oppose, and that we do understand the issue. And I do get that there's lots of experts in this room and on the call with us tonight. But waste has to go somewhere. And the existing incinerator has been serving London boroughs to get rid of their waste for over 45 years, but it is almost 20 years out of date, 20 years. It was set to be decommissioned in 2005. And we do need to ensure that the best possible technology is in place to protect residents. So for those residents that live immediately in that area, that they're living near a facility that is 20 years out of date. And that's why I think there's been every attempt to ensure that the latest technology will be used and that this will be one of the cleanest incinerators in the world. It will be the first of its kind to use in the UK, to use selective catalytic reduction technology to dramatically reduce the levels of nitrogen oxide released. It will use the same emissions reduction technology as the Copenhagen Energy from the waste plant in Copenhagen that was praised as an innovative climate solution by Sir David Attenborough in his Earthshot documentary. That incinerator has been referred to
Leader,
as the...
Do you mind concluding? Because it's gone past 10 o'clock now and I...
Apologies. I mean, I think this point has to be made. There are three main alternatives to an incinerator, all of which are significantly worse for the environment. These are ocean dumping, landfill and exporting waste to the global south, to countries that are less equipped to deal with waste safely and which are already suffering the increasingly severe effects of the climate crisis. So I just really wanted to make those points. But as I said at the outset of this response, we do appreciate the concern and the need to work closely with residents and activists to discuss some of the concerns that they have, but also to look at solutions.
Thank you very much indeed. And as I indicated to colleagues, we have now passed guillotine. It leaves me to say thank you very much indeed. Thank you to all those residents who came to the meeting to speak today, and an early happy Hanukkah to those in the Jewish community will be celebrating in a couple of weeks, and a very happy Christmas as and when it comes, because we won't be meeting together before then. Thank you very much indeed.